happen live, my like monthly live episode. But before we get into it, I do want to let people know who are just tuning in. You can leave comments and questions. We'll try to field them as we go if it pops up. So feel free to get in the chat, ask away as we talk about stuff and if anything comes up. But I want to start with I've been following you on Twitch for like months, and that's why I wanted to reach out because like what's great about 2020 was the fact that people realized that there's female DJs out in the world, and I love it. And so before we get into like what Twitch has brought you, can we talk about your background as an engineer and what brought you into DJing and producing and the fun that 2020 actually turned out to be?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's funny because I had like seen your name in my stream, and then I know people by their usernames, right? And then I got emails from you. So I finally connected the dots. So thank you very much for inviting me. So my background, so grew up with a lot of music around. My dad's singer-songwriter, grew up listening to a lot of like James Taylor and Dan Fogelberg and like a lot of like folk kind of music. But I, went through, I was good at math and science. In college, I studied engineering, and that was just what I thought was the right thing to do because I was good at math. But I really liked music, and I played field hockey in college, so I was always the designated person to like make the warm-up playlists, and like I just had kind of always had this like taste in music. I was always making mixtapes and all that kind of stuff, but never formally doing anything with DJing. Just thought DJing was cool. So I went, I got a bachelor's and master's degree in mechanical engineering. And when I graduated, I wound up working for Bose, the audio company, because I was like, I really love music, but I have this technical background now. So I went and worked in the corporate world for 7 years. And about, was it 2017, I had found out about this really awesome school in Cambridge, Massachusetts called Maven. And it was basically like DJ and music production lessons on the weekends and like evenings. So I went to, I'm like, you know what? I really want to learn how to do this. I've just always thought DJing was cool. So I went to these classes and absolutely just fell in love with all of it. I spent basically all my savings to go to all these classes, but I fell in love with it. And it was when I was going through that class and I would, be practicing DJing till like 3 a.m. or something. And I just remember thinking to myself, I wish I had this passion about my day job. And, it was... So, I did the local DJ thing in Boston. You try to network with people, you play a ton of gigs for free to a ton of empty rooms, like it's how we all start. But yeah, I was like, you know what? I really want to do this. I met my now wife, but we met in Boston, but she had to move to Maryland for work. So I wound up just, it was kind of the push I needed. I'm like, well, I want to go be with her. And I think I've kind of want to close this chapter of corporate life after 7 years. I really want to just try this music thing. And that was what I went off of. I mean, it was really scary, but I wound up moving over to a sales role for Bose. I already knew everything about the products. Like, well, can work less hours a week and focus more on music. So that's kind of how I got onto Twitch, because malls closed at the beginning of 2020 and I was working at a mall. So I got on Twitch, and it's really, a lot has happened in the last year because of Twitch for sure. But yeah, so that's kind of my background. I mean, I'm a big nerd. I like techie stuff. I was always into building things and things like that. So I think a lot of DJs kind of have that side of them. So that's kind of how I got to where I am now. And I moved to DC, and I, gave up corporate life, and I'm, still very new in producing my own music. I've been producing for probably about 2 years now. So I still have a lot to learn and a long way to go with that. But I mean, that is my dream, to be, playing festivals and headlining shows. And, in the next 3 to 5 years, it's really where I'd like to be. So
That's awesome. Most people would be like, I want to quit, but I don't know how to quit. And I
yeah.
guess 2020 pushed that for a lot of us.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, my whole thing is like, life is too short. The only thing I'm going to regret later in life is not doing something. So I'm feel fortunate that, I have a partner who is supportive of that. Because it's tough being in the music industry, period. It's tough to make money as a DJ, no question. But that wasn't it's not why I'm in it, So it was definitely very scary, but I always refer to this book by Mark Manson. His name is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I think some people have heard of it. Can I curse?
You can, it's a podcast.
The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and he talks about this whole thing called the do something principle. And sometimes you don't actually get motivation until you do something, and then that will trigger motivation. So for me, like, to pursue music, I had to quit my job to actually get the motivation to go do that. You know what I mean? And not the other way around. So that's
Well, it's just interesting because, I mean, we'll get into like the Twitch world and what's going on, but I've seen, like, at the beginning of 2020, I was still working in a job that I was just so busy. So I couldn't really get into Twitch at first of 2020. And then I did lose my job because of COVID and like had some savings. So I was trying to figure out what I was going to do in between jobs. And I like deep dived into Twitch, and now I'm as addicted as pretty much everybody else.
Yeah.
But like what I've seen happen on Twitch for DJs and music and performing arts is like insane. Like
it's very cool. It's a very cool, the thing I think Twitch brings to the table as opposed to other platforms is community. It's just a different vibe than you're going to get on, any of these other things where you're passively interacting with someone via like comments or likes or whatever. But when you're live streaming, it's just a totally different ball game.
Yeah, and what I've noticed too is that because live then stopped, obviously what's great about what's happening on Twitch is that me as a fan feels like my money, like if I'm going to sub or donate or buy merch, it's actually going to the artist, because I feel like when I used to go to shows, who was taking a cut of what? Yeah. And like the way the music industry was built, it's been a little bit like wishy-washy on where the money's going. So I kind of feel like Twitch is actually doing a service to those in the music industry or those in performing arts or anything that like is related, because there seems to be more of a direct relation between like fan to artist now, even though we thought there was before. It's like,
totally agree.
It's changed to the point where, and it's also motivating other people. And I think with the year that 2020 and going into 21 is, just the community aspect that you mentioned has helped a lot of people too, because I felt like people were burnt out or they weren't burnt out or unmotivated or thought that maybe they didn't have it in them to produce or DJ, or now there's kind of like a platform for everybody.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Twitch is just, it definitely, I think in some ways makes you a little bit more vulnerable because you are interacting with people in real time. So that kind of puts a spotlight on you that you wouldn't get on, say, on Instagram or Facebook, whatever. But that does create more of a personal connection with all of these people, and it's cool because I was never into, Twitch before COVID happened. But now I kind of like, I get it more, and like, I'm actually like looking forward to like meeting these people now, like when I do have a show. And you have a lot more of a reach from live streaming, when you ask your chat, where's everyone listening from? And it's like worldwide. That is like really freaking cool,
Yeah, that's what I've noticed. It's just the fact that like everybody's tuning in from everywhere that can tune in. And I also feel like the FOMO of events is a little bit less, meaning that like you feel like you're included now and like, oh, it's not, oh, I'm not, they're not in my city this week, or
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
not at this festival, so I
Yep.
can't participate. But I
And
think that is changing too.
I don't think, nothing's going to replace the in-person experience, right? Like we all still want to get back to the clubs. We all still want to get back to festivals. But I do think that live streaming will play a bigger part in that, moving forward. I think that, I want to still continue to stream even when everything opens again. It's not just like, I kind of thought that I was, when I first started streaming, I was like, well, I'll just do this for my friends until, but here we are a year later, right?
Yeah.
And you've built like this whole fan base and community. And like you said, you're getting money directly from, strangers on the internet, for lack of a better phrase,
Right.
but that's what it is. But it's just created this community that you're not going to get even at a live show. It's just a totally different experience. So I do think live streaming will have its place. I'm also curious to see if venues wind up incorporating live stream production into their regular shows, or, as an aside business model. I don't really know, but I mean, I definitely am grateful that, Twitch has given me an opportunity that I wouldn't have had. I've made connections with people. David Morales today raids my channel, and like, when would that, it's mind blowing.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because he's a legend. And
Legendary.
And the thing is like, I didn't realize he had a channel till like a month ago, which is ridiculous because I've been on Twitch like almost every day. But
yeah,
he has his Sunday mass, and then he has Thursdays now. I didn't realize he had Euphoria on Thursday. And like what we were talking about on the pre-show today, I was in his stream when I got up, and then you went live, so I came to your stream. And then I was like, oh, it'd be so cool if his like 400 people came over to your stream.
Crazy.
It's the same kind of vibes. And then it happened. Like he raided you, this raid thing. And I was like, this is the best thing ever. Because like,
it's crazy.
Raids and hype train, like just the model on Twitch is just so genius. Of like,
it is. It's really smart. It's really smart.
Like the way that it's helping people, because it's also the networking possibilities are like insane right now.
It's insane. It's really insane. Yeah, I just, I think that artists are seeing the benefit now of social media more so than before, and I also think that now you're starting to see, at least in the, dance music world, you're starting to see the people that like genuinely enjoy DJing, right? Like
Yes.
these people on here that, there's a lot of DJs I feel like that went silent because they want that in-person experience, which I totally get. But I think people that truly love DJing, and I am absolutely, I mean, DJing is my first love, definitely before production.
I'm the same way. I'm more of a DJ than I am a producer.
Yeah, I just love to DJ. And, I think you're seeing the people that are on Twitch now are the people that just genuinely love DJing.
Yeah, and I think it's surprising to people. It's also, music fans are like very passionate as it is. And it's now, I feel like people don't feel like they're alone. Even in the times of quarantine, they're like, oh yeah, I'm on Twitch. I get to hang out. I get to listen to good music. Welcome, people. I see your comments coming in. Yeah, so yeah, that's what's great. But today's raid, and you've had some other raids this last few weeks.
Yeah, too. Justin Martin brought his people over. I've been raided by Dirty Bird. Low Steppa's raided me. He's my buddy now. I raided him his very first stream or second stream. I raided Low Steppa. He is like one of my favorite producers, hands down. I love that whole Defected crew, but I raided him, and I remember him, all these people were so new to Twitch. I raided his channel, and everyone's like, what is happening? What is going on? But it's like made this connection now. And it's just cool that, there's this thing that we can bond over, whether you're a no-name bedroom DJ or like a, globally touring,
right.
producer. It's just cool.
Well, that's what I think is interesting about it. Let's talk about like I want your opinion on this because I was talking to friends about this recently. Is because of Twitch, do you think specifically with DJs and electronic music, there's kind of this not a disconnect, but I would say, like we mentioned, there's some DJs that are embracing it and some that aren't based on how they feel about what's going on. And it's kind of put everybody kind of on the same playing field, even though
100%.
there's a David Morales and then there's other people that are just starting. But what's great about it is I think I think that it's going to change the industry because, and for good though, in terms of putting people on the same playing field. Because I
Yeah.
think the idea of the headliner and the openers, while great, it's worked forever.
Hmm.
It doesn't necessarily determine love of DJing or love of choosing the correct music for the mood or
Yeah.
whatever it may be. So what is your thoughts on those that are just like, oh, we're just gonna go back to no Twitch and whatever? Like,
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that because when I first started on Twitch and my channel kind of first started to grow, that was like the real like thing that clicked for me. I was like, we are all in the same space right now. You know, it's really hard to be a music producer and just make a living off the music that's being streamed, right? So it's, you know, you have to play shows to make money to some extent. But Twitch has just put us all on the same exact playing field, and I think it's really been able to showcase the talent that's out there that hasn't gotten a chance yet or hasn't made the important connections yet, you know?
right,
And it's really cool. I mean, I think Twitch still has a way to go when it comes to like the algorithm for finding people, like unless, you know, people aren't going to scroll down pages and pages to find, you know,
right,
so it can be tough, especially now. It's become very saturated. I mean, there's no question. There's a million DJs on Twitch now. I started streaming like 2 days into quarantine and I just didn't stop. And I think that consistency is kind of what helped push my channel. Um, but I was unemployed, you know, I was like, well, what else am I going to do? My wife and I mean, we've redid this entire room. I bought so much gear. But you know, it's paid off. So
there you go.
I'm not complaining, but yeah, it's definitely, we're on the same playing field. I'm curious to see what happens when, you know, shows happen again. You know, I hope that there's been some, you know, more local DJs that have been discovered or, you know, get bookings that they wouldn't have otherwise or, you know, what have you. So, you know, we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Well, another thing I want to talk about is you've been one of the founders of Film House Fridays. And since this is Thursday and tomorrow's Film House Friday, let's talk about how that has grown immensely and what the nonprofit has done for so many women.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know of LPGOB. I cannot believe I never heard of her. Her and I have very similar taste. I think, you know, we like our piano house vibes. Um, and I found her on Twitch one day, and I remember being like, this chick is a badass. I'm like, who is she? I'm like, this femhouse thing she's doing is awesome. So I just like shameless Instagram DM'd her and I was like, yo, I saw you on Twitch. You're awesome. You're a huge inspiration for like all the female like producers, DJs out there. And then, you know, shortly after that, they decided to organize this Friday raid thing with other female DJs on Twitch. And yeah, I mean, it's really grown. It's very cool. Like everyone looks forward to Friday now. It's so cool, you know? And I like now that, you know, they're switching up the lineup and changing out people every week. Like, I think it's good. It's healthy to get that like viewership and rotation.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, Femhouse, it's so cool. It's so cool. LP is just awesome. And Xander is awesome. And Elena, who helps run it, just awesome. I'm actually going to be doing, which I don't know if they're watching, but I owe them I'm going to do a YouTube tutorial, like breakdown on one of my tracks that I've produced because they're
awesome.
launching their YouTube page. So I'm going to be doing that. And I know that they have the Femhouse Pandora station now under Diplo's Revolution, which is so dope. LP, if you're listening, I want to say on that radio station. But yeah, I mean, she's really grown. And, you know, I've seen Sophie Tucker a bunch and I had just never realized that there was that relation there, but it's so cool. They have made a whole community, you know, really, it's just so cool the way the Freak Fam, you know, Sophie Tucker's group of people have, you know, they've had a Zoom room open now for like 300 days. It's crazy. It's just so cool. It's something that, you know, you're only getting because of this whole live stream, you know, model that we're all living in right now. So
Yeah, I mean, it's grown definitely. You said rotation now of a lineup because there's just so many awesome DJs.
I know. That's what they've had to this year. I think they've realized that like it's really a lot of people want to be involved, and it's great. It's, you know, that's not a bad problem to have. So you will see a little bit more changing in the lineup every week. But yeah, it's FemHouse is dope. I know they, you know, they're doing really awesome work. I also heard that they're starting a scholarship fund, so I know a lot of the donations are going to help fund their scholarship now that they are going to be doing. So it's awesome.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, for those that are listening, don't know what FinHouse is. It's a nonprofit dedicated into helping people of non-binary or women who are into the technical side of DJing and producing it. Did I get that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's just been really cool every Friday that like it's just this stacked lineup of awesome DJs.
And everyone has their own flavor, you know, like I love it. It's cool. And I'm really looking forward to like going to travel these places and like meeting these other awesome women and hopefully, you know, doing a back-to-back set somewhere or whatever. I would think it, you know, I hope LP can organize some sort of like FemHouse festival. I think that would be dope because lineups need a little more diversity. That's for sure.
Definitely. That's the other thing is like another thing about what I mentioned earlier about great about Twitch is that women do exist in DJing. Mm-hmm. I know we knew that with some of the big names, but like I think people don't realize and need to like the inclusion of it all that needs to happen. And so it's cool that it's people are finding out that there's some talent that is on the other side and that maybe lineups do need to change for the better in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, LP's doing great work, so I'm here for it.
I love the comments coming in. I see you guys. Yeah, you're agreeing about FemHouse. That's awesome. So yeah, I want to talk about your productions because I know you have a release coming in 2 weeks.
Yes.
So talk about how that came about because
so dope. I mean, like I said, I've only really been producing seriously for about 2 years. I still have a lot to learn. I know it's a long journey to become a good producer. And I self-released a few tracks, like I guess it was like the end of 2019 into early 2020. If that's right, was when I was finally like, this stuff is okay enough for me to release. So I just released it on my own just to kind of get my name out there and just kind of see what people thought. And then I don't even remember now. I'm going to have to talk to Mike about this, but I met Mike Freak through, I guess it was through Headroom. So Headroom is this really, really awesome thing they were doing in DC, and I really miss that group of people. But Flash, which is an awesome nightclub in DC, they hosted once a month a thing called Headroom, and local producers could submit their music to be listened to on the club sound system, and you got feedback from one another. I was usually the only chick there. But you know, I came to DC not knowing anybody. I didn't know a soul down here. And I'm not like the most social at first, like, you know, but I was like, I need to meet people in the music scene. So I found out about Headroom and I started going, and Mike Freak, was it Mike Freak? Yeah, he did they did a remix contest for Mr. Wright, who used to be in DC. He now runs Deep Tech out in San Diego, but I did a remix contest for his track, and it was on Funk Trap Records, which is Mike Freak's label. So that's kind of how I got connected to Mike. And he had kind of been one of my mentors just in production. So I had this idea. So for people that have heard the track, I've played it. I mean, we made it, I don't even know how many months ago now, but I kind of had this like, you know, I love me a good classic piano house. So I kind of had this piano groove. I had found these vocal samples that just worked really well together. And I was like, it needs some more. I don't know. I sent it to Mike. He's like, let's collab on it. So he put his flavor on it, and we went back and forth for probably about 40 or so iterations of the track. And we were like, this is a proper tune right here. really, really, we felt good about it. And we sent it, we started with the big labels and we sent it to a couple big labels that we really like. And we got a couple no's. So he was a bit disappointed. I was just like, hey, I made a good track. He's been in this game a lot longer than I have, but, a bit disappointed. But he helps run Quantize Records, which is DJ Spen's label. And Spen, if you're not watching his streams, you need to check out his streams. They're awesome. And Mike Freak just sent it to him. And I remember Mike Freak sent me a screenshot of his text conversation with Spen. And he was like, yo, I love that track. Can we sign it? And I was like, damn. I was like, that's cool. If Spen wants your track. So we're in the process now of, getting the release together. Spen did he actually did 2 remixes on it. He did like a deep house, like dub, and then a vocal edit. So those 3 will be coming out on the release on the 26th. And we're feeling good about it. I mean, I released a track last summer on Mike Freak's label called I'll Never, and it hit like number 2 in the Beatport charts, which I was like, what the heck? But I really think it was because of the Twitch community that I had at that point in time, and people were like ordering my track. It was just really cool. So I'm hoping that the Twitch community, supports this one too. But we're really, really stoked about the release of this one. We was going to come out next Friday, but they're pushing it a week. But there's we might do some press stuff on it. So I'm excited. I think this will be. Now I'm like, oh crap, I really got to start working on some other stuff, because the one thing that I've still been trying to navigate in production is finding my sound. And I think it will evolve over time, but if anyone here knows Two Tails, he's an awesome tech house producer. I made like a techno remix for him for another remix contest. And I was like, should I really release techno when I want to make house music? But I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to put it out under my name. But I thought about like creating a whole other alias because, I still want my Abco brand to be somewhat specific. Abco as a producer, I want people to have kind of a certain idea of what kind of music that is. Which I think I've kind of found my sound with DJing, but as a producer, I feel like very, freshman in it, that I have a long way to go in terms of, sound design and finding my kind of unique sound. But I just said I want to get good at making generic house music first. So that's the path I'm on.
Shout out to everybody on Twitch leaving comments. Their feedback is your track is dope. So
I see you, DJ I am.
Awesome. So I guess my question is that story of like community and networking that Twitch has brought is great in terms of like finding people that like your tracks. Another interesting thing that you do that I love, because we're kind of around the same age, is you do 90s sets, and it brings me back to when I found dance music in the 90s. And what's great is it like I thought, people think of the 80s and they're like the 70s, but now the 90s are oldies. So
yeah,
when you do those sets, I'm like, oh, nostalgia, like 2.0. And the feedback that you've gotten on your like 90s sets, because I know there's other DJs like Janice Lauren does like amazing. Janice
Lauren is unreal. He is such a phenomenal DJ to watch. Like as a DJ, I love watching him DJ. He's very good. When I first started DJing, I bought myself a little tiny controller, I think with like my first tax return. Like the first year I had like a big girl job and I had no idea what I was doing. No idea. Tried to figure it out on YouTube. I could not figure out how to beat match. But I was kind of getting into electronic music at that time. And I got into, house. Sorry, I forgot where I was going with that train of thought there. There was a point to that.
The DJ in the 90s.
Yes. So when I started taking those classes in Boston, we kind of took a step back, and I actually learned on control vinyl, which is my first time actually mixing on turntables because I was just using a little tractor controller. And we did a lot of more open format stuff, and it's also a lot easier to get open format gigs than, just to be a house DJ. So I had messed around for a while of playing some open format stuff. So when I came over to Twitch, I'm just, I like to switch it up for me, and it tests my chops for sure, because mixing house music is a completely different ballgame from mixing, non-DJ edit, super heavy vocal tracks. It's a totally different game. But I have fun with it, and I think, now that millennials are not like the youngest generation, I guess, we appreciate, our throwbacks, our 90s and 2000s, which, by the way, one of my good buddies just hooked me up with a bunch of 90s and early 2000s hip hop and R&B. So I will certainly be digging through that and doing more sets like that. But yeah, I mean, I like switching up. I love good old house music. There's no question, but I enjoy doing those throwbacks.
Yeah, I mean, it gets me going. Because like a lot of those songs, I feel like I've heard a lot, and then like you don't hear them, or you've heard like remixes for a while, but you don't remember the original mixes, and then you play the original mixes, and you're like, oh, this is why we love this music, because it's so.
And that's why, like, even in house music, I and my viewers on Twitch know, like, I love me a good sample from my childhood, like give me a Destiny's Child sample, pitched down, pitched up, chopped up, like whatever, like I am here for it. I love that stuff. And I definitely think it's like the nostalgia thing, but it is fun to go back and like play the originals,
Yeah. And it I don't know, it gets people going in the chat, and then everybody brings it up like, do you remember Pogs? I remember we had that conversation a few streams ago, and then it was like, oh yeah, the 90s.
Yep.
So yeah, like the chat's going wild over there about our chat over here. So I don't want to keep you too long, but in terms of like, what do you suggest for people? Do you like, you took some classes on learning how to DJ and produce?
Yep.
And I know we've talked about FinHouse and how that's helping people learn, to DJ and produce.
Yeah.
What is your thoughts? I mean, a lot of people can't not work right now to like go to school, but there's also these other options of other classes. And I know a lot of DJs and producers are offering their own like master classes, not the master class, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What is your thoughts about, how people want to approach it? Because myself, I'm getting into DJing myself, but it's been a long time coming. And then now it's like, well, why not try it out? So,
yeah, I mean, there are a lot of classes out there that can be really expensive. I mean, YouTube is your friend. There's no question. It's just, for me personally, I had a very hard time learning how to DJ just watching a YouTube video. That's really why I needed to go in like in-person instruction. That's just how I learn. But in terms of like free stuff, YouTube is definitely, I mean, there's probably a lot more on there now than even a few years ago. But IO Music Academy, I've taken a production class through them, taught by Pat Locke. They're really reasonable classes. They focus more on production. And yeah, I mean, there are some I've seen. So DJ Tizzy, she is also one of the FemHouse ladies. She's been doing kind of like some DJ instruction on one of her weekly streams, which is really cool. So there are definitely a lot of resources out there. There's some, I'm a little more familiar with online resources for music production. I think Skillshare is one of them, or Skill Success is one of the websites that I've used for Ableton stuff. But there really is a lot of good content on YouTube too. So yeah, I mean, that would be my first recommendation. And that's kind of also why, like, I have my camera angle that, for anyone that's watched my stream, the camera angle I have is so, high up. So like people can see what I'm doing, there's a lot you can learn. One YouTube series that I actually really recommend. I don't listen to much of his music, but Laidback Luke does some really great tutorials called In My Mind, where he kind of talks about what he's thinking as he's mixing, which is just like, it's just really, even as an experienced DJ, like it's really cool to watch that. And it's great for like any beginner DJ too, to like kind of understand, because that's the one thing I feel like we're missing in like the DJ community. It's like, okay, you can understand how to beat match, you can learn all these different technical techniques, but I think there's something else that's kind of missing, like more of the psychological aspect, of DJing. And, I talk about this all the time with my DJ friends, like, 90% of it is track selection. and context of where you are and what time of day is it, and what's the demographic, and that is way more important in being a good DJ than like being able to do insane technical stuff, in my opinion. I think back in the day when they had way simpler equipment, it was all just about creating a vibe, and I still think it just comes down to that. It's understanding the context around, a set you're about to play, or, what you get booked for. So.
Yeah. I mean, I've noticed that too, especially on that's the other thing that's good about Twitch and the raids too, is that everybody tries to raid the same type of DJ or close, which it depends on your opinion on it. But
yeah, I like to switch it up. I mean, with, where we raid to, or, I think it's, it's important to see like, or support, smaller streamers, bigger streamers, people that play different music. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of nice when you're able to like raid into something that's like on the similar like plane.
Yeah. And then you have David Morales raid you today, and then it was like insane.
Crazy.
Yeah. So all the way from Italy, like he lives in Italy and you're in DC, and it's just,
I know. It's just so cool. That's like, it's like, I really hope that I get to connect with these people. Like, once we can travel again, and it's just Twitch has just brought me something that I just never thought would ever happen to me. I had no clout to my name at all when I started this. Really, I'm still just at the very beginning of my music career for sure. But I want to keep doing this. I know that I'm already 30, but I'm just starting, and that's fine. Like, it's like I said, life's too short, and I know if I didn't do it, I would regret not doing it later on. So I'm going to stay away from engineering as long as I can.
Nice. Well, to kind of go back about something you said about Laid Back Luke. Yeah, I went to Winter Music Conference in 2019, and yeah, he did a DJ tutorial masterclass at that.
Awesome.
And then I got addicted to his videos that you were talking about, because it's so, I don't think a lot of DJs, when they are teaching, they do it like he does, where it's like he's willing to tell you what's going through his mind as he's doing it. And then it makes kind of more sense, because just knowing the knobs and everything else is great. But
yeah, there's a big psychological aspect to DJing for sure. Like even when people talk about, killing a dance floor, like, what does that mean? How do you know? If you're a new DJ, you're like, how do you describe that? And I do think that Laid Back Luke does a good job of like going into some more of those kinds of details and not just the technical stuff.
Right. And I also think that like we were talking about earlier about the structure of headliner versus opener. And what happens if you're a new opener and you don't know that like the headliner doesn't want you to play their tracks, because they're going to be playing their tracks or their remixes of their tracks, and then you do, and then you don't get booked again because you're not reading the room or whatever. So there's a lot
about context. Yeah, there's a lot to it that I feel like there needs to be more out there around that kind of stuff. Maybe I need to do this.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought about starting a podcast.
You should.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Twitch keeps me busy.
Yeah, well, and I started this podcast almost 9 years ago, and it's just been a journey of meeting people. Now with technology has even changed since I started the podcast. Now I can do it to Twitch like we are right now. Yeah. That wasn't even a thing in like 10 years ago. So it's great. Killed with Kindness is really going deep here about some comments. So let's talk about that, because you just had that their like raid-a-thon.
Oh, that was so fun. That was so fun.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because
so it's interesting to see like the things that have come about because of quarantine. And it was just a really cool idea that this virtual DJ stages, they're like, we should make a store for all these DJs. Everyone on Twitch has a green screen, right? Like, make a dope setup. So it was I think we were talking about this today. Their the virtual DJ stages website is now live, and you can like buy them. It's so dope. So they made me a custom one, and I got to send them in a set for that festival, and it was so cool. I'm excited. I want to do that again for sure. So hopefully I can make it out to the West Coast before the year is over, and I would love to do another set actually in their studio. So it's funny. I was talking to my wife about this today. It's, because some of these things you get approached to do, they want a pre-recorded mix or whatever, for even, for some of these streaming things. And I feel way more uncomfortable when I know I'm just recording myself and I'm not live. I feel way more comfortable when I'm like live, which I feel like people would think there's like more pressure, when you have 100 people watching you on a Twitch stream. But I get way more nervous, and I'm like, will start over 50 times when I'm just recording a set by myself and I'm not live.
Well, because I think when you're not getting feedback from the chat that you're used to, and also there's no vibe. You're doing it to yourself, so you're recording, and then that's the vibe that's going to be up forever.
Yeah.
That's probably why, because with your sets as they go, you're just feeling the vibe.
Yeah.
But when there's nobody watching you live, then you're like, well, what do I want to do? How do I want to set this up? And
yeah.
So much, like you said, psychological.
Yeah. I hate recording sets like by myself in this room. It's just funny, even though I'm by myself in this room all the time. But I prefer the chat in there. It just, I don't know. It makes me more comfortable.
Yeah. I mean, you also have the cool thing about yours, because you have dogs and you've incorporated your dogs into
the big part of the stream. Yes.
And so like, I think just like everybody's flavor on it, like it's different per DJ. Everybody has their different overlays or different themes. They're different. I don't know if you've been in, what's his name on Twitch, Nick Styles.
Not familiar.
DJ Nick Styles. He streams every night, so 7 days a week, but each one has a theme, and he's like hype man DJ extraordinaire. So he's on these turntables and he's like shouting out the whole time. He has dance come in, so he'll do like the Running Man and body rolls and like.
That's fun.
So like that's what I'm saying, is that Twitch has let people's personalities come out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's the number of DJs now. It's I don't even know how many more there are. I started in March, and it was a much different scene then than it is now on Twitch, for sure. And yeah, I think, especially if you're just trying to start streaming now, you really have to go like above and beyond to be like, okay, what makes me stand out from like these pages and pages of DJs that are on this platform now. And, it was just kind of funny because when I first started streaming, and I've been telling my chat that I want to do this, but I want to just do a watch party of my very first stream, just so people can see what the stream used to look like. And if you saw a stream that looked like that now, you'd be like, this is trash. I'm going to go find a way cooler stream to watch.
But I also feel overproduction now is a little bit takes away from it. Like everybody that has green screen, sometimes the visuals get too much sometimes. Not you, but like
I would honestly say that I feel like mine is overproduced now, because it's like the dog cam and like there's like a lot going on. And I know some people just they just want music and just music. But, again, everyone's personality has shown through. And I see Killed with Kindness here says something about the dogs on the screen. Like that's what I tell people that are starting streaming. Like, what do you want to click on? What makes you click on a thumbnail? That's like the big thing on YouTube, right? It's like all about the thumbnail. Thumbnail design is like most important, right? But I think the same thing for Twitch. It's like, what looks good? When I started streaming at the beginning, I spent a ton of time on YouTube. I learned about lighting. I learned about, just different aspects of streaming. There's so many resources out there now, so many on how to make a good stream and this and that. And again, I'm a bit of a nerd, so I went all out, and, we've got monitors on the wall and, $10 studio lights that I made, from Home Depot. And that's just, but again, production value is really, I mean, the game is upped to an insane amount now, but I think that's what kind of helped my channel grow in the beginning, because I had got in, I think, to the Twitch DJ world early enough, and I had kind of learned as I went, and I was able to kind of find my brand on Twitch, if you will, early on. and people have come back for that. And I know the dogs are a big part of it, but it's just fun. We're just playing good music. Like that's all. I just want good vibes. Everyone's cooped up, so that's why I enjoy doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's a good thing, but I also feel like now it's a little bit of a competition about the production for some,
Yeah.
not
I mean,
everybody.
definitely everyone's trying to one up each other, who has the best visuals or whatever. I kind of like that I don't have a green screen behind me because, I've watched other streamers YouTube videos, and it's like my room has like a personality to it, right? Like people can see a little bit more like into my life when they like see like my workspace, as opposed to just me being in front of DJ decks with whatever behind me. So I kind of like that, and it works for me, and I feel like it invites people into my studio, Um,
Yeah. Can we talk about your New Year's 24-hour stream real quick?
God, that
Uh,
was that
I
was
there were so many streams on New Year's, but I popped into yours for
Mhm.
like 6 hours, then I went to some, and then I came back to yours because I knew yours was going to be closer to when I was going to be in New Year.
Yeah,
But let's talk about that. And I know you're not the only one doing 24-hour or
yeah.
more online, but
So
talk about that experience and how crazy it's.
yes, a 24-hour stream, not recommended. Let's start with that. It seemed like a lot of gamers will do this, right? It's commonplace, I think, on Twitch already for people to do 24-hour streams. Mind you, all of these people sit down when they do it, right? But you're like, oh, I could
Some
DJ for
do,
24.
yeah.
Like, I think a lot of, at least like gamers, right? Like you're used to sitting. It's a very different. I mean, I had freaking compression socks on. Like my calves were hurting. But the way it came about is that Twitch added this feature called Community Challenge, where people pool their channel points together to, whatever it may be. But I decided, I'm like, okay, let's see if people can raise enough for me to do a 24-hour stream. So they did, of course. And I'm like, all right. I was like, well, maybe it's just a good idea to do it on New Year's because there's a little more adrenaline that would keep me going because of the excitement of New Year's. So I was like, let's just celebrate around the world. And man, that was hard. That was mentally tough. I think the longest stream I had done before that was like 14 hours or so. And that was like tough, but like we're usually awake for 14 hours, right? In a normal day,
Right.
give or take. So that wasn't too bad. But I am not a night owl. Like that's not me. I'm in bed by like 10:30, 11 o'clock every night. I'm not one to, especially when like people like always produce like wee hours of the night and morning. Like not me. Just get me up at 7. I'll have a cup of coffee and then I'm like can start work. That's why I started that stream so early in the day, because I was like, I know I just need to get up and go. So we had, my wife, very good, kept me caffeinated and fed. And then, by about the 2 a.m., 3 a.m. mark, because I had started at 8 a.m. the previous day, that's when I started to feel it. And hour like 20 hit, and I saw that I had a countdown timer going the whole time. And when hour like 20 hit, I was like, I can't do this. My wife was in bed and I went up to her. I literally left the stream for a second and I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I don't think I can like get through the 4 more hours. So it got tough, but like the chat was like, there were like 300 people in there and they're like, come on, you can do it. I wound up putting on a mix for like maybe 20 or 30 minutes just so I could sit down. So I feel like I cheated you guys a little bit, but man, that was, I don't want to do that again, really. But half of the money I raised, we donated to the Capital Area Food Bank. So we were able to provide like 2,000 meals to
Oh,
people in
wow.
DC. So it was awesome. Like it was for a good cause. So the community was awesome. That was really great. So oh yeah, I see 8s. I had people telling me dad jokes. Like I just needed that like mental stimulation, but it was tough. Like, I mean, I sat for maybe an hour total. So it was just demanding on my body, even just dancing around a little bit, that adds up, so my calves were cramping and I've probably never really pulled an all-nighter like that, like ever in my life before. So I think if I were to ever do it again, I think at like hour like 18 or 19, I just need to like pound Red Bull. Just be like, you just gotta get through this. But I was, I played it very safe. I don't think I had any energy drinks. I had some cold brew, and that was it. And maybe like a caffeine supplement, but that was all I had. And it was fun. I mean, we went through all types of music. I played a bunch of house, obviously, but come midnight, we were playing the crazy club remixes of whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I've actually seen a few do long streams, and it's just, I feel like everybody gets to that breaking point where it's like, oh, this is painful, which is funny because you think that like when you're partying, you can last.
Yeah.
But
it's just
I think
different when you're by yourself,
Yeah. Yeah. But it was for New Year's. So it was great that you did around the world New Year's because.
Yes, it was fun. I definitely think that helped a little bit, like to get me through it. But I swear I slept for like 36 hours after that. Like I took a shower right after, and then I think maybe I ate something, and then I passed out. Like it was, I swear it was almost like 36 hours. I think I woke up at one point to eat, but it was a whole day and a half of recovery in bed. So I will not be doing that again anytime soon. Although I did tell my people that maybe I'll do a 12-hour stream. I could handle a 12-hour stream because we're about a month out from me hitting my 1-year anniversary on Twitch, which is crazy that it has been an entire year now.
Yeah. I mean,
I'll
you're
celebrate.
also to like almost 10,000 followers, right, on Twitch?
We're creeping up on that 10K. It's crazy. It's so fun, like to see people like come back and they're like, "Oh my god, like this channel's grown so much. I was follower number 300, and you sent me stickers." And like it's just cool. I feel very grateful. I've tried to stay true to myself. I know my stream is a little quirky with all the features, and now I have all the camera do all this like fun stuff. But I'm just a nerd like that. I'm just having fun with it. I'm enjoying it. So as long as I'm enjoying it, I think there's an aspect to streaming that some people feel obligated to act a certain way or do something because these people are giving you money, and you kind of feel like this like circus monkey, of like do something, but I've just tried to stay true to myself, and I'm having fun with it. So it's the most important thing.
I think that's why you've got this community, is because it doesn't seem fabricated. It doesn't seem like you will leave once shows come back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like obviously you'll want to get booked, but you'll still have a community on Twitch that you'll do in between shows.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I don't want to leave this platform, by any means, for any significant amount of time or anything. I've met a lot of awesome people. I mean, we'll see what happens. I think, when I look at my metrics, even of just viewership in the last year, and there was a bit of a dip last summer, and I know that we were still all under quarantine, but I think more people were outside in general when the weather was nicer, right? So I am curious to see what happens to Twitch in the music space in the next couple months, especially, now as people are getting the vaccine, and, by summer, I imagine things will start opening up again. But I still think Twitch will have its place. So we'll see.
Awesome. Well, that went by fast. Everybody on Twitch already follows you, but for those listening to this when this goes up in the podcast form, you're abco music everywhere on social media, correct?
Yes, and that was one of the reasons I picked the name abco. So that's my dad's nickname for me, abco. And when I was in those DJ classes, they're like, "You need a DJ name," and I'm like, "Well, I'll just use abco." It's what my dad calls me, and it just so happened to be available on like every social media platform. So a lot of people will call me abco music, like they think that's like the whole name, but it's just abco.
That's awesome. Well, yeah. Before we go, actually, let's talk about your dad's stream around the Christmas time.
Oh my god, that was so fun. My dad loved it. Denny loved it. We'll definitely do more of that. I mean, my dad, he's a music guy, he is the music influence in my life. There's no question. And he was the one that always told me, I was an athlete growing up. I played multiple sports a season. I played Division I sport in college. I was always an athlete. And he was the one that said, he's like, sports are only going to last so long in your life. Music will last forever. My dad's in his 60s now, and he's still like it just needs that one. I just need to have that one big song, like, and he's still like a kid about it. And that's just like the power of music. I think it's so cool. But yeah, he loved it. He came here for Christmas. He came down from Jersey, and I was like, Dad, let's do a stream. But he was like rehearsing, like he was so nervous. It was so funny. But he was rehearsing in the studio. We like had to get everything right. And yeah, he had a blast with it. So we might do more of that.
I just thought it was awesome. And it also proves that we don't see a lot of performing arts on Twitch. So it was nice change to see your dad performing. Well,
yeah, it was fun. Dadco.
Yeah, as
everyone calls it Dadco. Dadco.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in to this episode. You can re-listen to this in the podcast form, and the videos will be up everywhere. And thank you, Abby or Abco, for joining me on this episode.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Awesome. So see everybody next time on Trending Topics with BB, and I look forward to seeing you in Twitch, everybody, or wherever.
Yes.
So have a good night.
Awesome.